Memento Mori. This is a word that some Benedictine monks say to each other as they greet each other during the day. Silence is often respected greatly, so the only word you may hear in a given day is Memento Mori, and you would say Memento Mori back. Memento Mori means remember your mortality. Actually, it's a bit more in your face than that. It's remember you will die. Now, I don't know about you, but I usually greet my friends in a very different way every day. If you can imagine in your neighborhood, people walking by each other on their morning walk saying, Memento Mori, Memento Mori. We could do it in English. That would be probably a little bit more practical. Remember, you will die. Remember, you will die. Another way we could do that would be the more liturgical way, would be, remember, you will die, and also with you. I've been thinking about death in about 3 different ways, and I don't know quite how to bring them together. The one is that we visit death in so many different ways, sort of for entertainment. I mean, isn't it fascinating that we television and movies, so much of media is about death. We can watch a number of murders in an evening on television, and then we can watch the news where there is more report of death. We also have video games, we watch movies and so on. And also, another thing that's really not all that different than the video game is the murder mystery novel, right? We can critique our kids all the way along about the video games they're playing, but a lot of us also read murder mysteries. We go to our easy chair in the evening for leisure to get away from the world, and we visit death. Fascinating. Death as gamish entertainment, thrilling, sensational, but not me. So that's the other way I've been thinking about death, is we don't often talk about our own death. We're afraid of that. We sort of try to stay away from that as much as possible. So there's 2 things, and they're quite different. There's death as game, almost, as thrilling, and then there's my death, which I don't want to talk about. And then a connected thing is that in our post-Christian and post-religious society, we are losing rituals for death. Between 2005 and 2011, I worked at the Urban Good Funeral Home in Waterloo, and I was a funeral officiant. And so I did funerals mostly for people who don't go to church anymore. When I began that in 2005, there was a regular kind of pattern still for how a funeral would go. And remember, these are for families who are not a part of the church anymore, but remember it. So there was visitation, there was the funeral, there was some sort of a burial service of some kind, and then we would have the fellowship meal afterwards. And a lot of that in the last 7 years has changed radically. More and more people are doing only one of those things or none of them. In the funeral industry, there's something called Plan B, and Plan B means that you do nothing. There is no service, there is no gathering, there is no service of burial. The funeral home will deal with everything and either bury the body and let you know where it is, or they'll send you the cremated remains. Nothing. So these 3 things are places or spaces, I think, where Christians can be today. I'm not sure exactly what that means, but how do we negotiate death as game or fun, and death as I will die, and death as something that we're increasingly ignoring in ritual? So I just have a few anecdotal things. Tony Campolo, 30 years ago, was talking about how he was doing funerals for men who had AIDS. Nobody was doing this in the Philadelphia area, but he and a few friends would offer their services to bury men, to have funerals for men who had died of AIDS. No one wanted to touch those bodies or be near them. That was a Christian witness that he wanted to do. Friends of mine whose neighbor died, there was no service. The family didn't want to do anything with it. But my friend said, it'd be nice to do something. So they organized a neighborhood gathering in their backyard where this is a multi-religious neighborhood. They weren't trying to make it Christian. They gathered people together in their backyard to just reminisce about this person who had died, their neighbor. And then they have actually a number of them went to the cemetery later on. It was a way to ritualize, to go through this death together. And then another thing that you could be a part of if you'd like to, there's a movement in North America called Death Over Dinner. And you can look it up on deathoverdinner.com. And what it is you invite people to dinner and you talk about death. There you go. It's already happening. Maybe it's one of those things in the missional life of the church. We talk about joining things that God is doing in the world. Maybe this is one entry point where we can help out, where we can be a witness and help others through the whole death experience. Everything from dying to the funeral to grief counseling and so on. This room, we have incredible gifts to give not only to the church, but to wider society. We have been singing through death. We have a Messiah who died. This is a part of us. We have been singing our ways through death. When somebody dies, we know how to sit with people when they are dying and when they are grieving. We have something to share here. Those Benedictine monks, when they say Memento Mori to each other, they say it in different ways, of course. You can say Memento Mori as almost as a kind of, if you're not pleased with somebody, you can say Memento Mori, right? I know some of the soccer players that my son plays with, they do that with each other once in a while. And often, and sometimes it's said in a way that's joyful. Memento Mori. God has given us a limit. God has given us this life. This life is precious. And death is precious as well. Memento Mori. God is good. Memento Mori.